As Bad Batch continues, we're learning more and more about the place clones have in the Star Wars galaxy, and why Palpatine has been moving away from them. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. Bad Batch's Season 3, Episode 6 and 7 detailed a lot more about the specifics of Rex's crusade against the Empire. We're seeing him building an army and developing that army. Made a few steps forward, and in this episode also took a few steps back.
This is true. He's also helping kind of the developments of like the beginning of the rebellion-ish.
A different perspective.
Yeah.
And something that won't inevitably become the rebellion that we know and love.
Yeah.
But more than likely, especially considering what Senator Chuchi and the other Senator Singh is doing, that will probably make its way to Bail Organa. So I think inadvertently, not directly, are we seeing the beginnings of the rebellion.
I agree. It's really neat to see the rebellion kind of in its infancy. Even just like not anything spectacular, not anything truly meaningful, but just knowing that there are people out there already talking about this, already ready to fight for their planets and their people, and be like, I don't think this is good. Yeah,
and it showcases like the piece of history where you may have an invention that is invented around the world without any connection around similar time periods. And I think this is that idea, but in Star Wars, as the Empire grows and expands, and so early on, even early on, I should say, the Empire is making enemies and is not the galaxy-wide success that Palpatine may want.
Yeah.
And while watching these two episodes, we get a good look at the modern-day clone and their place in the Star Wars galaxy. And something that we talked about and noticed as we watched these two episodes, you kind of have to wonder why Palpatine is even using clones. Because it seems like he has this love-hate relationship with cloning. On the one hand, he is trying to develop this idea to basically live forever, whether that's him personally or through clones. He's obsessed with finding ways to implement cloning. But on the other hand, he doesn't have a level of control that he wants over the clones.
Yeah, control, I think, is the key word here. Everything that Palpatine does is all about control.
Yes.
From the very beginning of his cloning escapades, that is him putting the whole cloning into practice, having the clone army ready for him, or ready for the Republic.
It was a pawn in his game of chess.
Yeah. But even just having the chip put in there, just like, this is my failsafe, so that I can control these guys when I need them to do exactly what I need them to do. And now that that chip's gone, or at least used up, and things are a little bit more hairy. Also, all of these clones have been through a war together.
Yeah. Regardless
of their conditioning, regardless of their training, they're still human. They've still gone through this trauma, through this crazy moment in time together.
While they may not be friends of the Jedi, they are still brothers in arms.
And that's something I think Palpatine knows he can't overcome.
Yeah.
I think it's just a flaw in them.
I don't know if Palpatine knows that, but he's becoming more aware of it.
Yeah. I would think he has a general idea by now.
I guess you're right with that, because we see the introduction and explanation of these like blink clones.
Exactly. Yeah, so here he comes in being like, all right, I can't control them all. Or at least I can't control them like I wanted to, or I can't control them like I did with the chip. So that means, let's see if I can control them a different way. So now we have these shadow clone guys that are coming in, these assassins. But he's going to find, like with Crosshair, he can't do that for all of them.
Yes.
Which honestly, ultimately makes these clones kind of useless to him. If you can't make all of them do exactly what he wants them to do, he's got to start fresh. He's got to wipe the slate clean. He'll use what he can. But ultimately, it's time for the actual new troopers.
Yeah, that's what makes Hemlock so important to Palpatine's plans. Hemlock is developing this tooling or way to brainwash or reprogram these clones, specific clones.
Yeah.
Identifying which ones will be available to do this. We see Crosshair not go through that process.
Yeah.
And not have the ability to be in this role. But we also see these other clones that are aware of this and see themselves not as brothers in terms of the general clones, but brothers in specific cases with the ones that have gone through this same reprogramming.
Yeah, that's a really interesting case in these 2 episodes. The lack of these assassins' brotherhood in just a clone, but in the people or the other clones that have gone through the process. It's like, oh no, I can identify with you because you know what we went through. It's still a strange thing. I feel like it's still Hemlock and Palpatine kind of pulling on what they can connect them and make them useful for in a way. Like it's still control. It's still just how they can pull their strings to control these guys. Very interesting though.
Yeah, and I think whatever these shadow clones will end up being, I think it's going to fuel whatever Hemlock and Palpatine are working on in this secret area of Tantus. The place that we were not able to see. This area that we assume is like the cream of the crop, or the ones that have the strangest cloning mutations or reprogramming done. I think there's a lot of potential for that. And then this will ultimately inspire what is going to come about in the ultimate usage of clones with Palpatine himself.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate thing here, is Palpatine's always fascinated with clones in ways that he can help himself. And I think that Palpatine is aware of the limitations of clones, but is constantly trying to find ways that he can use it to his abilities, which is why he continues to use clones even though they don't necessarily always work with his intentions or his end goal.
Yeah, clearly, as we see with Wolf at the end of the letting them go, like that would never ever happen. That's never what Palpatine would ever want, is for them to be like, oh yeah, I've got a brother bond with traitors.
Yeah.
Like, no. You're working for the Empire, you're gonna do what the Empire wants.
But he also realizes that the weaknesses clones have is also a strength for a lot of them. The ability to make these split decisions, the ability to say in this moment, given the circumstances that they are in, given the context that they have in terms of the overall goal, they can make decisions to achieve that goal, rather than like a droid or something where they cannot have the freedom to make those choices. So there's this really interesting dichotomy between like Palpatine's need for the clones and his hatred for the clones in that same breath. Like what makes them great is also what makes them terrible.
Going back to this unknown area in Tantus, here's just a thought. What if that is like the beginning of the Dark Troopers?
That could be interesting to see.
don't
We do
really
know in Legends that the Dark Troopers are in the beginning like 70% clone, where there's a portion of them that are clones.
And it would kind of it would be really, really interesting if Hemlock's hand is robotic. Like if this is kind of what Hemlock has come to create, where it's just these like. Also, I thought it was really interesting that the Shadow Trooper clone guy was like, why have I been, what was the word? It sounded very like automated. Like, why have I been like awoken?
Yeah, why have I been activated?
Yeah. What does that mean? Like, are you, what? It sounds very mechanical. It sounds very droid-esque.
We'll save that for another theory.
Ooh, okay.
Because that lends itself to its own idea. So if you're not subscribed, get subscribed. And if you already are subscribed, stay subscribed, because we'll be getting into that for sure. As always, thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below on this theory, and check out our podcast. As always, may the Force be with you.